Welcome back to the Seeing Red MMA podcast here. I'm your host, Dustin. This week, we have a UFC fight night here out in Kansas City. This week is going to be a great main event. You got the return of Max Holloway taking on Arnold Allen, who's been on quite the win streak here. He's undefeated in the UFC. Let's dive right into it here. I'm actually pretty excited for this whole card here, top to bottom, for fight night, especially coming off of a big weekend, UFC 287 last week there. Adesanya retaining or basically regaining his belt there. This is not a bad fight night to actually have a comeback with. So free on ESPN Plus. This will be in Kansas City here. Starts at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the main card there, 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the prelims, so set your calendars according. But yeah, dive right in here. Number 2, Max Holloway, former featherweight champion, interim and actual undisputed featherweight champion, taking on number 4, Arnold Allen here. Arnold Allen's coming off a pretty big wins here as of late. I know he just had that win over Calvin Kattar not too long ago. I know it's kind of a weird win too because Calvin Kattar kind of blew his knee out early into that second round. At the end of the first round, you can kind of tell that his knee was already damaged there. But other than that, I mean, he did get a win over Dan Hooker. Fight before that, beat Sadiq Youssef. And like I said, I mean, he's undefeated in the UFC. Beat Nick Lentz, Gilbert Melendez, Rinaldi. I mean, he's been fighting in the UFC since 2015. I mean, he's got good wins over like Makwan Amirkhani, also some other wins over a couple other prospects as well. But this isn't really a storyline about Arnold Allen here. This is more of a storyline about the return of Max Holloway coming off the loss, his third loss to Alexander Volkanovski for the belt back in July of last year here. Now, you could argue that he may have won the first 2 fights there, depending on how you viewed it there. I thought he lost the first one. I thought he won the second one. Third fight, you couldn't deny that Volkanovski definitely got the better of him there and was able to get the unanimous decision win. So I don't know what really is there for Max Holloway at this point here. I mean, if he beats number 4, Arnold Allen, an up-and-rising contender, what does he do? Fight the loser of Volkanovski, Yair? He's already fought both of those guys, lost to one of them, beat the other one. Does he rematch Calvin Kattar? Does he fight Josh Emmett? I mean, he doesn't really have many options here. I mean, he's really cleared out the featherweight division. So I think the story of this one here is more or less the return of Max Holloway, how he looks after taking that time off against Volkanovski in the third matchup, or to see if Arnold Allen might be the newest top contender in the featherweight division. Because if you get past Max Holloway, you're getting a title shot. I mean, he's been so dominant in the featherweight division. We all remember the Calvin Kattar fight where he just absolutely put a horrendous beating on Calvin Kattar. And I recently rewatched that fight not too long ago, and that was hard to watch. It was a rough fight because of just how much damage he put on Calvin. But kudos to Calvin for being the tough competitor that he is. But honestly, if Max wins or he loses, I think it's time to maybe try his hand at lightweight. Really put on the size that he was meant to when he tried to go up to lightweight the first time against Dustin Poirier not too long ago, fighting for the interim lightweight belt. I think it's about time we see Max jump up a division there, try his hand at the lightweight division. His frame does suit the lightweight division as well, too. Long and lengthy is definitely a type of frame that kind of benefits you in that upper weight class there. But I mean, if Arnold Allen gets the job done here, I mean, I could definitely see Arnold Allen getting a title shot off the winner of Yair versus Arnold, or Yair versus Volkanovski, which is what I think they're trying to set up. I mean, it's a very good main event. It's just pretty high stakes for Max Holloway there because, I mean, if he doesn't get the job done, where does that put him at in his career? I mean, he's been fighting for so many years here, has accumulated a lot of damage over the years. But Arnold Allen, super young, super hungry. This is a giant step up from his last fight, even though the Calvin Kattar fight, it went his way as far as getting a victory, but did it really end the way he wanted it to? No, I mean, no one wants to win a fight via injury. That's just not the way any of these guys really want to go out there and win there. But still, a win's a win. But that's your main event here. Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. Your co-main event is another featherweight bout. Edson Barboza returning against Billy Quarantillo. Now, this is a fight I was really looking forward to once it got announced here because Billy Quarantillo is just a dog. I mean, he just knows how to absorb damage and just put it back on you there, which we've seen Edson Barboza not really do as well when he has to back up against the fence. When he's not the one going forward, letting those kicks fly, he definitely has some trouble there. So if Billy can kind of weather the storm in that first round against the heavy leg kicks, the switch body kick, all those really crazy, like just powerful attacks that Edson Barboza throws, I could see Billy Quarantillo getting I want to say a finish, but I want to be realistic as well too. I think he might be able to get like a decision. I know he's coming off that big win over Alexander Hernandez as well too, when Hernandez tried his hand at featherweight. And Barboza, it has been a little bit since we've seen Barboza. His last fight was March 5th, 2020, so or 2022, over a year ago since we've seen Edson Barboza. His last fight was a pretty dominant loss to surprising. I think a lot of people were kind of surprised at the outcome of this fight when it was happening. Bryce Mitchell was able to actually kind of dominate Edson Barboza for 3 rounds. And I mean, he's on a bit of a losing streak right now. He's 1-2 in his last 3. His last victory was Shane Burgos back in May of 2021, which Burgos, as we know, is no longer in the UFC. Actually fights tonight. This is Friday night that I'm recording this in the PFL against Olivier Mercier. So we'll see how he does according to that. But this is kind of one of those things there when you get up in age like Barboza, been fighting way before the Reebok deal there, and you don't want to be 3 losses on a row, especially number 14, almost outside of the rankings there. But it's a really good spot for Billy because Billy's unranked. He's kind of been known as one of those grind guys where he's able to put a lot of pressure on guys and they wilt under it. So I have to give the edge to Billy here. I think he's just a little bit younger. I think he's able to just withstand the punishment better than Edson can. And I mean, he's probably just going to be a lot more aggressive than Edson, especially since Edson's really good at doing like 1 or 2 shot combinations there. I think Billy's going to be able to evade those, kind of counter off of him and get him on his back foot, which, like I said, we all know that Edson Barboza does not really do well on the back foot there, a la Justin Gaethje, Giga Chikadze, a bunch of examples there. But yeah, Billy Q versus Edson Barboza, it's going to be a great fight to watch. Then your fight before that, you got a light heavyweight bout. Now, this is one I am very interested in because I'm a big Dustin Jacoby fan. Not just because we share a first name there, but because he is an extremely high-level kickboxer. He's actually fought Alex Pereira in Glory before, has really had a long, extensive career in kickboxing and made the transition back into MMA. I know before he was in Glory, he did fight in the UFC, I believe in the middleweight division, and he kind of just came back to the UFC after he kind of did his run with Glory, which no shame in that. I mean, you want to switch it up. I mean, we've seen Izzy do it. We've seen Pereira do it. So why not try his hand at it as well? But the guy he's fighting, Azamat Murzakanov, if I said that correctly, I have no idea if I did or not. I mean, he is coming off a loss to Devin Clark here, and he also got a win over Nchukwi back in March of 2022, so actually last year, and then he lost to Devin Clark via KO or TKO in the 3rd round back in August of last year. So he was pretty active last year for being ranked at number 14 as of now, or 15, excuse me. But Justin Jacoby, if you remember his last fight, man, I mean, he's just been putting on performance after performance here. Did lose the controversial split decision to Khalil Roundtree, which, looking back on it, I did give Khalil the fight there, but it could have gone either way, honestly. I don't think you could be mad at either outcome there. Fight before that, got a win over Jung. Fight before that, or a KO over Jung. Fight before that, got a unanimous decision against Oljeshik. And I think that was the fight that sent Oljeshik down to the middleweight division. He's got a win over Darren Stewart. Had that split decision win over Iwan Kutelaba. Actually, was it a win? It doesn't say. Yeah, I don't know why the website for UFC doesn't say who won that fight. It just shows their 2 faces there without the win. He's fought Justin Ledet. He's fought Chris Camozzi, even though Chris Camozzi beat him all the way back in 2012 there. That was a submission. And again, that was in the middleweight division. So couple of years in between his last UFC fight in the middleweight division back in 2012 to his return to the light heavyweight division against Ledet in 2020 in October. So it's been quite a run for a guy like that, just across two different combat sports there. Definitely got to give the edge to Justin Jacoby there. I think he's just more seasoned and has been around a lot longer, especially in different combat sports. I mean, when you go directly to a combat sport that only deals with striking there, you're bound to get a lot better striking than some of the other guys that have to worry about takedowns and things like that. And while you still kind of, it's like riding a bike. Once you get really good at striking there, you can kind of maintain that level of execution while still working on your wrestling defense, your wrestling offense, so on and so forth. But I digress down to the next fight here. We have Tanner Boser making his light heavyweight debut. Recently was fighting at heavyweight, and he's taking on Iwan Kutelaba. Now, this is an interesting fight here because Tanner Boser he's put on quite a run as of late here. Actually, it doesn't look like this is his... Oh, yeah, it is light heavyweight debut because he fought Nascimento Ferreira. He fought Oven St. Preux when St. Preux tried his hand at heavyweight. Lost to Ilir Latifi at heavyweight. He has a win over Andrei Arlovsky, which is... And no, Arlovsky's a little long in the tooth there, but definitely no slouch when you can beat a guy like Andrei Arlovsky. He's got a win over Felipe Lins, which has definitely aged very well there. Lost to Cyril Gahn. I mean, no shame in that. Also won against Spitz back in 2019. But then you look at Kutelaba, who is a bit of a fan favorite there. You might know him from going to the weigh-ins covered in green paint, saying that he's the Hulk. Lost via TKO against Nzechiku back in 2022, last November actually, so fairly recently. Got submitted by Johnny Walker, which I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Also got submitted by by Ryan Spann, excuse me. But he does have a decision win over Devin Clark here, so that's pretty nice. Does have that KO loss that we all know him for against Ankalaev, and then 2 back-to-back KO losses. You could argue that the first one doesn't really hold much value there since he was playing possum, but still, when you have experience against the top guys in that division, it definitely helps you out in the long run. But got to give the edge to probably Boser there. I think his power is going to carry a little bit more, and he's known to be a little bit faster, even for being the heavyweight. But this is the fight that when I saw this whole card announced, along with the Barboza, Billy Q, of course the main event that I was very excited for is you got Pedro Munoz coming in and fighting Chris Gutierrez. Now, it's been kind of a weird run for Pedro Munoz as of late. Last fight, got that no contest decision against Sean O'Malley where he got poked in the eye. And then the fight before that, lost the decision to Dominic Cruz. Fight before that, lost the decision to Jose Aldo. So if you think about it there, the no contest doesn't really count against him, but his last win was a decision against Jimmy Rivera. So it's been kind of a tough run for Pedro Munoz as of late there, but we all know and love Pedro Munoz there, really throwing those leg kicks super hard, comes in to fight, really entertaining style. And Chris Gutierrez coming off the knockout win where he unfortunately retired Frankie Edgar, which you may agree with me when I say this, that was so disrespectful of the UFC to give Frankie Edgar for his retirement fight. Chris Gutierrez, especially this is the first time that Frankie Edgar's children and his family were watching Cage Side, and they had to watch their dad and their husband get absolutely flatlined in the first round with a knee. That was just so disrespectful. I mean, I know Frankie's going to take any other fight, but man, there should have been some kind of talk of like, hey man, maybe not this guy, maybe we fight someone else. I know he's trained with like Marlon Moraes and things like that, but I would have loved to see that one instead. But you got, Chris Gutierrez, he's on a tear right now. From what I'm seeing here, he's got win. His last loss was Hani Barcelos back in 2018. So Chris Gutierrez being number 13 in the bantamweight division, getting a win over a number 9 Pedro Munoz, you could definitely see him jumping up into the rankings, which is who I have winning there. I think he's just a lot younger, a lot hungrier, and has been on a better win streak as of late as well, too, because if you look at both of the last fights, one, Pedro Munoz, he lost a no contest where, I mean, there wasn't really any loser. He got poked in the eye, but still, leading up to that, nothing was really happening in that fight. The whole first round was them dancing around each other, trying to figure each other out, which, I mean, there's no shame in that. You got two high-level mixed martial artists in there going at it, but then there's really nothing else to show for it. He got poked in the eye pretty quickly into the second round as well, so it's not like you could say that, oh, he was winning that fight up until it happened. It was just kind of hard to tell. And then we all know Sean O'Malley got projected up to the Yan fight there. Now he's sitting at, like, I think he's #1 contender right now, something like that. I digress. You got Clay Guida opening up the main card against Rafa Garcia. I mean, Clay Guida, the ageless wonder right here. I mean, this guy's been fighting since I was in, I think actually before I was in high school. I think he's been fighting since I was in middle school. Let me go back and see when his first UFC fight was, because he's been fighting for so long. It's kind of insane to think about it. Like, the kind of competition he's had to face years after years after years after years across two different weight classes, lightweight and featherweight. A lot of people forget about his featherweight run that he had when he was training with Chad Mendes, Uriah Faber, all those guys. But let me see, because it goes back pretty far. Yeah, I mean, he's fighting Dos Anjos. This is crazy. I mean, as I go further back, it keeps loading and loading and loading. Jeez, how long has he been fighting in the UFC? My God. His debut was 2006. 2006. I wasn't even in middle school yet. I was still in elementary school, and this guy's fighting in the UFC. It's 2023, guys, and he's still talked about in the UFC. Not necessarily a top contender, but, I mean, he's still getting wins. I know he got that last win over Scott Holtzman there. Rafa Garcia also coming off of decent wins as well, too. Yeah, UD in his last fight, UD in the fight before that actually lost unanimous decision to Drakkar Klose, who, by the way, may I say, Drakkar Klose, super nice guy. I know he lives out here in Phoenix. I got the pleasure of meeting him and Courtney Casey at Walmart there. Just kind of stumbled past him. I was like, you're Drakkar Klose and Courtney Casey. I'm big fans, guys. Great to meet you. But I think it's a good fight for Rafa Garcia, because if he can get a win over a veteran like Clay Guida there, you could see him getting a lot better matchups here in the future. But, I mean, I got to ride with Guida, man. I mean, he basically was, like, on the TV while I was growing up. Headlining your prelims, Bill Aleggio versus TJ Brown. Good featherweight bout there. I know Bill Aleggio had that really fun fight with Andre Fili there. Lost a split decision. Has a TKO win over Herbert Burns, the younger brother of Gilbert Burns. Fought Brito, won a unanimous decision. Lost to Davi Ramos, which there's no... I mean, that's not a bad thing. Davi Ramos is extremely good. Has a win over Spark Carlisle, and has that amazing fight with Ricardo Lamas there, where they just threw down and banged. I mean, for having your debut against Ricardo Lamas and throwing in a performance like that, I mean, people got to pay attention and watch. But then you also got TJ Brown here, coming in off a win over Silva, who was on the Contender Series and got that third-round submission, so it kind of halted the hype train, because a lot of people thought very highly of Silva coming into the UFC, especially watching his Contender Series debut. Does have a loss against Nerdenbecky, which we just saw fight, who was it? Steve Garcia this last weekend there. Has a win over Charles Rosa. Also has a win over Kamaka. Lost to Chavez and Griffin. I don't know who you are. But pretty good fight against high-level featherweights here. And when I say high-level, I mean they don't necessarily have to be ranked. It's just they're very skilled in what they do there. I mean, especially nowadays, the way that the talent level has risen over the years, you could be unranked and still be an absolute killer. That's how great this sport is nowadays. But one of the other fights that I'm most excited to watch on the prelims here is Brandon Royval versus Mateus Nicolai. Brandon Royval is a crazy man. He is a fighter's fighter. First round submission over Matt Schnell back in May of last year, and then has a split decision over Baltarine. And he obviously, I mean, we all remember that submission loss against Pantoja, but no shame in that. I mean, Pantoja's now fighting for a belt. And then the fight before that, lost a TKO to Brandon Moreno, which he kind of blew his shoulder out in that fight. So it was kind of one of those things like the Arnold Allen incident where you don't really want to win off of an injury, but hey, a win's a win. I know Brandon Moreno did cause it there. It wasn't like he just slipped wrong and blew out his shoulder, which doesn't happen. But we all remember that crazy Kai Kara France fight where he was got dropped, and as he was getting up and Kara France was rushing in, threw that spinning elbow there. So very high level, very fun to watch as well too. Super creative inside the octagon. Now you look at Nicolau, he also has a TKO win over Matt Schnell. He also has a decision win of Dvorak, and also has a unanimous decision over Tim Elliott. And this one has aged very nicely. He has a split decision win over Manel Kopp, who is now fighting Davison Figueiredo here on International Fight Week, so that's a very good fight. But he's only lost one fight in his UFC career, and that was Dustin Ortiz back in July of 2018, where he lost first round TKO. But they've shared similar opponents between Royval and Nicolau there, which is kind of the case for a division like that. I mean, the top guys are all going to be floating within the top 10 there. I mean, you rarely see them fall in or out of it. But extremely fun fight to watch here. Zach Cummings is making his return back to the octagon here. Don't know how long it's been since we've seen him. Looks like his last fight was back in 2020 against Akiriko. Lost the decision there. Fight before that, lost to Akhmedov. And he does have a win over Trevin Giles, though. So now these are all at middleweight, mind you. So now he is going back up to light heavyweight to take on Ed Herman. And these guys are pretty much like veterans of the sport. I mean, they've been fighting for so long there. I remember Zach Cummings on, I forget which Ultimate Fighter season it was, but it was a pretty long while ago. I mean, Ed Herman coming off the unanimous loss to Manifield, has a win over Rodriguez, not Gregory Rodriguez. Does have a decision win over Ibrahimagov, has that KO victory over Zach Cummings, lost a decision to Jean Vellante there, and that was back in 2018 as well too. So also lost a decision to CB Holloway, who was another nice guy that I met. And we all know him for getting kicked in the face by Nikita Krylov back in 2016 as well. So, I mean, Ed Herman's been around the block. I mean, he's been in the UFC forever. So, battle of some veterans there. Probably give the edge to Zach Cummings. Hasn't taken as much damage. You also got Jillian Robertson versus Para Rodriguez. I give the Jillian Robertson submission. Easy one. Lando Venata versus Daniel Zellhuber. That's a pretty good one. Zellhuber from Mexico, Lando Venata from New Mexico. Also, Contender Series alum Bruna Brasil versus Denise Gomez. Now, Bruna Brasil got that nasty head kick KO on the Contender Series, which gave her the spot. So, excited to see her. Aaron Phillips versus Gaston Bolanos. And then Jocelyn Edwards, who did miss weight, by the way, against Lucy Poldovia. So, extremely fun card here. Kind of strategically placed fights that are going to have people tune in for the prelims and the main card as well. But nonetheless, your main event, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. Max Holloway is a minus 155. Arnold Allen is a plus 135, which definitely reflects what I'm thinking as well, too. I think Max Holloway kind of picks apart Arnold Allen. I think he's just so much better than everybody in the division except for Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski just has his number and is just that good. But I don't know how Arnold Allen is going to hold up against the pressure that Max possesses. But that's pretty much your card for this weekend here. Make sure to tune in. It is in Kansas City there, 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. So if you're out here in the mountains like me in Arizona, 5:30 is the main card, 2:30 is the prelims. So set your timers accordingly. But yeah, we got a fun fights this weekend here. Now, if you like the videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. Other than that, guys, you have yourself a wonderful day. Till next time.